Hello, my name is Mike Martin, and we're broadcasting live from Casio today with another artist spotlight. Welcome everybody on Crowdcast, on YouTube, and Facebook. We're streaming everywhere we can throughout the broadcast. If you have questions, just drop us a line in the chat window. We'll do our best to answer your questions live with our special guest coming up. Joining me today, roughly 820 miles to my east, we're practicing social distancing, is Mr. Rich Formidoni. How are you doing, Rich?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Hope you are all safe and healthy and doing great.
Awesome. Well, today we're joined by a really special guest. He's had an absolutely amazing career. He's played with all of our heroes. He toured with Yes, the band The Sea Within. He has his own solo album called Hurry Up and Smell the Roses, which is one of my absolute favorites. And for the last year or so, he has been the keyboardist with the band Kansas. And today we're going to hear all about his life on the road with those guys. Everybody welcome Mr. Tom Brislin. How are you, Tom?
Good. How are you all doing?
Doing great, man. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. So, Tom, so you are obviously, like many musicians today, you're off tour, and so where are we watching you from today?
I am at a secret location in New Jersey.
So you're a native New Jerseyan, correct?
I am, although I have been living in Nashville for the last year plus.
Okay.
Which is a place I lived a few years earlier. But I was boarding a plane 2 Thursdays ago to go to the West Coast to start a run with Kansas. And while I was boarding the plane, I got the call that the dates were postponed just in the nick of time for me to get off the plane. And I grabbed another flight to New Jersey so I could be close to relatives and friends, but not too close.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're safe and in a safe place with family nearby. That's very important these days. So, I guess we want to start it out. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started? How you got involved in music early on.
I just gravitated to the piano as long as I could remember. I think there are photos of me at 2 or 3 years old, just kind of banging on the family piano, and I just started messing with the piano. And when I was around 6 or so, my older sisters started giving me some piano lessons from those classic red primer books that a lot of us who studied piano learn. And it was competing with Saturday morning cartoons, so my dedication at age 6 was a little bit suspect. But then a year later, I started taking piano lessons in my hometown of Denell, New Jersey, with a woman named Anita DeSorbo. And I studied with her all through high school. And along that way, I was also learning things by ear, learning things on my own, getting into rock bands, writing songs, and attempting to start bands since I was about 10, actually. We were awesome. And then I think I started gigging when I was about 15 with various groups. And I had this kind of dual mentality of influence in my life. There were people who said, follow your dream. And there were the people who said, get work and do work. And so I kind of mashed those together and I started playing everywhere I possibly could. I played at restaurants. I played at churches. I played at street fairs, auctions, anywhere I could find a gig. And because of that, I think I started getting into a lot of different styles of music. And progressive rock is one of those things that kind of was like a magnet to me. I just kept kind of coming back to it. I was always a fan of these bands like Yes and Rush and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Kansas. And I when I was 17, I had a prog rock band. And when I started college and started studying jazz, I thought prog was my greasy kid stuff, and that was fun to do as a teenager. I never would have suspected that I would be having a career playing that kind of music, but here we are.
What's it been like making that transition, jumping into prog rock hero status with Kansas?
I got the call in 2018, the end of 2018, to join Kansas by Phil Ehart, who's the band's drummer and co-founding member. And it was very cool. I mean, they knew me from the various other groups that I had played with.
Right.
And it was a pretty natural transition, I think, because I've been down this road before when I had to jump into a band with little notice. I mean, when I played with Camel back in 2003, I had just a few weeks to get that music together. And Yes didn't give me a whole lot of time either, combined with the fact that I had to learn everything myself by ear from the recordings and just figure it out and do the sound design as well. So I had that muscle working, and I got down to it and just started making it happen.
Wow.
Crazy. Very, very cool. So sorry, Mike,
No,
ahead.
go ahead. You got it, Rich.
So one of the things that it's been cool to hear about is you're involved heavily in the songwriting process in Kansas, and the absence of presence being a lot of your handiwork. So I was curious if you could share with us anything about the songwriting process. I don't know if it's too top secret, but
yeah. So when I was first asked to join the band, that was one of the first questions I asked was, am I invited to the songwriting? Because for so many of these groups, my role was limited to touring, sometimes recording, and that was cool. But I've always been a songwriter. And a lot of people who are familiar with my playing might not know that. So I was pretty thrilled when Phil said, yes, bring it on. We want to hear what you got. And Zach Risby, who is another recent addition from a few years ago, he plays guitar, and he's the principal songwriter and producer engineer extraordinaire. He was already writing a lot of the music, and I just started hitting it. Interestingly enough, I was already on tour with the band, and the way Kansas would tour is that we would go out for a few days and come back home and do a lot of flights. So I had some time at the home studio and also a lot of time to write lyrics in hotels and airplanes and things like that. So I tried to make the best use of my time, and I was still trying to master the set for the show and practice that.
It's not easy stuff.
I don't even know what I did, but I will say that I knew that it was a golden opportunity to write for such a storied group like Kansas, who have such amazing songs, and to be part of that story. So I started writing songs, making demos, writing lyrics, and submitting them to the guys. And quite a few of my contributions were given the thumbs up for the record.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic.
It's amazing.
And that album's due out this summer currently?
Yes, June 26th worldwide.
Oh, can't wait to hear it. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So speaking of, songwriting while you're on the road, you recently posted something to your socials sort of about the situation we're in. Obviously something you came up with quickly. I guess I'm going to roll it, and then we'll circle back and talk about this video that you posted on your YouTube channel. Here we go.
All right. You're washing your hands. You're not touching your face. You're coughing into your sleeve. But there's one more thing. Sanitize your phone and remote control. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because it's gross. Take rubbing alcohol and a cotton ball, and you sanitize your phone and you clean it all. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because it's gross. Sanitize your phone and clean its case. Don't you know how many times you hold it up to your face? You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. When you're stuck at home and you're all alone, you take a rubbing alcohol and you clean your phone. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. You your computer keys, tablet screen, and then the other place where your hands have been. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. Sanitize your phone and remote control. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because they're gross.
And we're back. That's absolutely amazing.
That was perfect. It's a poignant message. We all needed to hear it. And we didn't know we needed to hear it that powerfully, but it turns out we did. So
Get it.
it's awesome that you are being creative during what is undoubtedly a crazy, trying time. Are you finding yourself doing any music writing for yourself or for the band? Or how's your musicality during the pandemic?
It's the ideas are coming, and one thing that I've tried to master over the years is the art of capture. So as soon as I have an idea, I try to capture it in some fashion, typically my phone's voice recorder, and sometimes at the worst possible timing. But that was, my main mantra through that is, get it down now, judge it later. And I even keep that thought in mind pretty deep into the process, just so I can give something a chance to grow, because you never know. I think a lot of people who write songs might kill an idea too soon because they're just being too harsh on themselves. And I just say, no one has to hear it but you, right? So just let it happen, play with it for a while. One thing that writing for Kansas did for me over the past year was it kind of got, again, I think of it like a muscle, this sort of creative muscle to go through the process. So when I diverted my flight and I got to New Jersey, I was thinking, oh, wow, all my home studio gear is home in Nashville. What do I have here? I have a couple MIDI keyboards and a computer that can barely keep up with me. But I wanted to make it an experiment. I said, let's see if I can make no excuses and just get something down. Now, it would help that I was crafting a literal 3-chord pop punk song, so I didn't have to worry too much about it. But I was even revising and rewriting as I went. And I think it was just, I wanted to set the tone because I knew that we're going to be in for something here. And that not to just go mad and just to start off on a positive note and say, all right, how can I be creative and helpful? And I was thinking of all my friends who have families and kids at home that are just going, kind of going out of their minds with boredom. And I was thinking, well, have something everyone can sort of shout along together. But so what that's done is I think it's proven to me that I can at least get some things down. And I was very fortunate that Mike, thank you very much, Casio sent me a Privia PXS 3000 to work on here, which I properly sanitized the packaging for outdoors and left the box in the garage and brought this keyboard in. And now I can practice. Now I can write and just I want to use the time and still have a perspective and sort of control the amount of news coverage I consume. I think that's important. But just to keep spirits up for myself and for others.
Wow.
And that is good advice all around.
Great advice.
Thanks.
And when you told me last week where you were and that you didn't have anything with 88 keys to play on, I wanted to get you the PXS 3000, which of course you're using on tour with Kansas. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you're using the Privia.
Yes. So my first year with Kansas, which began a little over a year ago, I played my first shows with them in February of 2019. There are two main concerts that we do. We do the Point of No Return anniversary show, which is the long show. And then we do, in the summertime, we have a sort of Kansas Classics live show, which is a little bit shorter. For the Point of No Return shows, we have an acoustic-ish set at the beginning of the show, which is up front near the edge of the stage. My rig is over on the side. I'm not there yet. So we all kind of go in a front line. So the PXS 3000 has been my keyboard for that short acoustic set. And the first song, People of the South Wind, has this sort of ripping piano solo. So I kind of put it to work right away. And when we do the summertime shows, I keep the Privia on the road with us because we also have a little rehearsal room backstage, which is an amazing luxury, just to be able to warm up and play your instrument. Keyboard players especially hardly ever get to do that. So thankfully it's got the weighted keyboard action like piano, so I can get I can get loose and I can get the chops ready for the show. So it's been a great companion on the road.
That's great. Do you find that the piano sound, especially on your solo, is a good sound for cutting through the mix? It holds its own with the other instruments on stage?
Yeah, I've basically, the one that I've been using for a long time now is a stage piano preset, which is a little bit brighter,
Yeah.
and cuts through. And there were even brighter options if I needed it. But I got to that one, and our front of house engineer gave it the thumbs up. He said, that's the sound that we like out here. And I said, okay, we'll go with that. So that it's been living on stage piano sound for the duration.
That's
Nice.
awesome. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I have a clip of you playing the 3000 from the NAMM show last year. You put together, actually you played Song for America. So I'm going to roll a quick clip of that. So let's take a look and listen. And we're back. I wanted to watch the whole thing, but it is on YouTube, on the Casio Music Gear YouTube channel. So go back and give that NAMM performance another view if you want to hear more of Tom. Before I forget, Tom, where do people find you online? Your video that we watched earlier, the wash your hands, wash your phone video, that's your YouTube channel is on. It's just Tom
Yes,
Brislin?
my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Tom Brislin, one word. And I hope you all can check it out and subscribe. I'm trying to grow that channel. It's a nice project to do while I'm here. And my main site is tombrislin.com. And Facebook is /Tom Brislin Music. Instagram and Twitter are also at Tom Brislin. So come say hi.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. And I also want to remind the audience on all three of the networks where we're streaming, if you have questions for Tom, we're watching the chat windows. We'll take a look at the chat and we'll get your questions answered.
Got one positive comment saying they love your solo on Southwind.
Oh, cool.
Yep,
Thank you very much.
that's key. Nice. Were there any reactions from the band to you using the PXS 3000, or just more happy with your performance?
A few of them want one now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're like, well, can I get me one of those? Yeah, they like it. They all gave it the thumbs up, and they're very pleased.
Great.
Oh,
Glad to hear.
fantastic. All right. So yeah, the chat windows are just about 30 seconds or so behind us. So people are commenting about Song for America right now. Just double checking the rest of the feed. Your friend Toby. your friend, artist Dave Mackey. We got lots of people on Facebook and all of the channels. So hello, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, you have an advantage, I think, in Kansas because you're very proficient with the way the world communicates today. So you're having been a writer for Keyboard Magazine, being very prominent on social media with your YouTube channel that's already getting a bunch of subscribers, and we hope we'll get a lot more after today. And one of the comments here from Tim Dillon is Tom is awesome because he does keep us in on the loop. That's really cool, and I'm sure it's helping new audiences discover Kansas as well. So you're not, being the young blood, being the newest addition of the band definitely has some advantages for the band, and that's been really cool to see.
Well, thank you. It's been an interesting line to walk because Kansas comes from that era of rock bands where there's mystique, and they don't give away the store. And I'm like sort of the inside operative,
Yeah.
but I don't give it all away either. But I like to be accessible and just kind of bridge the gap into this new way of relating to a band, interfacing with a band, and being entertained by a band.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's evident, and it's a lot of fun to see.
Thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I'm just going to another look at the chat. The Facebook chat in particular is quite active. And yeah, lots of thumbs up and happiness all around from your fans.
Great.
So one question for you. Do you feel like there's time for you to continue exploring some solo work, or does Kansas really take up most of the musical bandwidth that you have these days?
My goal is to write as much as possible. And like I said earlier about that whole idea of writing first and asking questions later, it's bound to happen that a lot of the material might not be a fit for Kansas. It might be a fit for The Sea Within or a Tom Brislin solo album or something like that. So I have a feeling that there will be something new in the works, solo-wise, and See Within, we keep in touch. Everybody in that band is quite busy with other projects, but I just want to take advantage of the opportunity to make as much creative output as possible. Right now, I'm so thrilled that we finished the Kansas album, and I really want to put a lot of energy into showing the world that album and promoting it and talking about it like I do here. So I'm going to try to strike the balance, I think.
That's
so
great.
Without giving away the farm, is there any way you can describe the album? What's similar to Kansas? What's a new departure from what's been done before? That kind of thing.
Well, I will say that people who have been following my music will definitely hear the DNA in the album.
Great.
That's good news.
I definitely also wrote under the influence of knowing it would be Kansas. So it's very Kansas-esque. And I actually asked myself this question, what is it about Kansas that makes their music Kansas music? And I think one of the ways to look at it is that it's got such a progressive rock side and such a hook side to it. So prog rock with hooks and some sensibilities of that nature. So, either you think about it as, either conventional classic rock that you can really sink your teeth into, or really cool prog rock that you can remember once the song is done. So I just kind of wrote with that in mind a little bit in the back of my head. Zach Risby wrote a lot of the music, so I would and the vocal melodies, but no lyrics. So I had an interesting challenge of writing lyrics and fitting them into the melodies for a good number of his songs, and the music and lyrics as well. So I think fans of classic Kansas are really going to dig this record, and even the longtime members of the band are saying the same thing. So what's cool is that we're not under any sort of pressure that bands like this were under, say, maybe in the 80s or even the 90s to get a radio hit or something like that. We are going directly to the music lovers, directly to the fans, and making music that was really fun to write, a lot of fun to play. And I'm pulling out all the stops. I got synths aplenty, all the classic sounds, Mini Moog and Selena, and there's grand piano and Hammond organ, and there was no real censorship of any sort in sonic censorship, right? There was none of that. So we just went for it, and everyone's been really juiced about it.
Lots of thumbs up about those comments coming. One of the questions from Facebook, someone was asking, where do you draw your inspiration from when it comes to writing?
Wow. I think I always subscribe to this idea that it's like the music you listen to is like your food and nourishment. So try to listen as much as possible. I found the times when I've been writing the least, I've also been listening to other music the least. And the opposite is true. So when I'm digging bands and getting into either new music or music that's new to me that I never checked out before, and just trying new things, maybe from styles that I don't typically listen to, it gets the wheels turning. So I know, I mean, there are always the specific artists who have influenced me, like Colin Hay, Sting, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Keith Emerson especially, Gentle Giant, Joe Jackson. You see where I'm coming from here. Right. This is John Coltrane, Tori Amos. It's like that's when you talk to me, that's what you got. So I think that's a big influence. And I'm also inspired by my colleagues and people I know who are getting stuff out there. I see so many friends just doing instant live stream performances, and that's inspiring to me as well. And I've been listening to a lot of new funk, intelligent funk, very musical funk, like Snarky Puppy, Thundercat, Wolfpack, that sort of thing. I really enjoy groove music a lot too, and a lot of instrumental music as well.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Somebody's asking here, your album, Hurry Up and Smell the Roses. I love it. They're asking, what's your favorite song on that album? Question from Carol.
Hi, Carol. I find it hard to pick a favorite child.
Yeah, that's
but I will say that a song that really means a lot to me to this day, that encapsulates that whole experience of making that album, is Industry in the Distance, which, back in 2010, I had moved to Nashville the first time to sort of bug out, fill a house with instruments, and get away from it all and make a record. And what do you know? So many of the songs were about being isolated and being homesick. And I thought that Industry in the Distance kind of encapsulated the way I felt personally, and also kind of expressed the mood that I had in it. So it seems to be a song that sticks with me the most, but all of them have a special place for me.
Another question came up asking how you balance work and life while on the road. I know you spoke a little earlier about having some days on, some days off, which must be very helpful for that. How does that compare with touring for Yes, for example, the way Kansas typically tours?
Yes, as well as Meatloaf, Debbie Harry, we were doing the tour bus thing. And Spiraling, we were doing the tour van thing. Because we spent most of our career as a support act for groups like They Might Be Giants or Violent Femmes or OK Go. And what was funny is I did a Meatloaf tour on the bus first. I was paying a lot of dues up to that point, but I flip-flopped the van and the bus. So we did the bus first, then I went back and got a dose of reality with Spiraling in the van, and then came back to it. So the tour bus life, you have to sort of steel yourself into this mode where personal space is at a premium and quality rest is at a premium. So just trying to take care of yourself mentally and physically on the road is a big challenge. With Kansas, like I mentioned earlier, we'll fly out to a location, get a couple vehicles, and drive to the next one or two, with a few exceptions if we're quite far from home. So it's a different type of thing where practically every week, I got to go home. So the challenges there were more about what do you do with that free time? If you've been diligent and arrived at the airport 2 hours early, like they tell you, and you have a speedy trip through the line, what are you going to do now? Are you just going to thumb through, the feed, or are you going to do something to feed yourself knowledge, information? And so I think finding what you do in the time that's not on stage is important. But I think it's really great that we have that rehearsal room, because again, sometimes we can go in there and woodshed some things and learn. And I wrote a couple of ideas in there too. So it's a cool situation.
Nice.
That's amazing.
What's your preferred reading material when you're stuck at the airport?
Oh, put me on the spot for this one. It varies. Honestly, a lot of times I would be writing.
That's cool. You use are you writing music on a tablet? What's your portable creative outlet?
It's either lyric writing or brainstorming. I do a lot of lyric writing exercises. For any songwriters out there who are familiar with Pat Pattison, he teaches songwriting at Berkeley, and he's written a few good books, which some people have looked at me skeptically. And there's sort of this bias about learning in music and in lyrics about like, oh, well, if you're using a book to write lyrics, you're cheating, you're using a formula or something. And I'm like, no, I used to think that way. But then I started checking out some of this material, and I was thinking, oh no, this is just about unlocking what you have to say. And so I will do a lot of brainstorming exercises, stuff that would read like the rantings of a madman, because you're sort of just supposed to just keep writing and not stop. And again, don't worry about it. And sometimes I don't even read it back at all. It's just the act of doing, which has been helpful. So there's a bit of that. Composing music is tricky. I do have an iPad with the pencil, and it can do some notation there. I actually transcribed all of the Kansas material that I had to play in the concert. Some using Sibelius, some using Notion on the iPad, some using Logic, because sometimes I would just end up playing it into the computer first and getting it ready. And those of you who saw the first maybe month and a half of shows that I did with Kansas, I actually had a tablet on stage, but I'm moving back and forth to keyboard and looking at cues. I barely even had the opportunity to look at it.
Right.
So I says, I have to get off book quickly on this one. So that's how I worked it with that.
So, in fact, that brings up one of the questions on Crowdcast. A mutual friend, Tom Sanderson, he actually saw the show in Rockford, Illinois, and he had heard about all the work you had done to transcribe the songs to get ready for touring with the band, and said, any plans on publishing any of those charts? Wink, wink,
Well, I thought about it. I would definitely have to go talk to the publishers of those great Kansas songs to publish it. But again, sometimes the transcriptions are a little bit in code.
Yeah.
So there were things where someone would read it and be like, hey, wait, that's not what's going on there. And I was like, yeah, I already memorized that part. But I actually have been talking to Phil about maybe producing some sheet music for the new album when it comes out. And that would be certainly doable, certainly on the songs that I wrote and published. So we'll see how people react to the new album, and if there's a demand, if people want to learn how to play these songs, because some of them are definitely songs you can play.
Really interesting question from Facebook. Kiki is asking, if you never became a musician, what could you see yourself doing? Wow.
She also says, by the way, thank God you became a musician.
Of course.
Yeah, really.
That question
I think about, if I look back, again, it's like I had this real clear sense of purpose since childhood, which is unique, and I'm really grateful to have that, because I also got a lot of voices coming at me through adolescence and even into adulthood saying, this is not a viable career, music. And so fortunately, I got into this dream before I knew what the definition of a career was. And when I was a kid, I also used to draw a lot, draw comic books and stuff. I think I drew more comic books than I read, and was into creating games and creating something. I don't know. I really don't know. It's been,
I'm glad.
you know, my basketball career ended when I was still pretty short. So I don't know.
Probably something creative.
Yes.
Probably.
Question from the Crowdcast group about your live rig, and what are you using to switch all the patches and all the sounds between songs? Anything in particular in your rig? Are you using MainStage or anything like that as a hub for all the keyboards you have on stage?
Yes, exactly. The nexus of my setup is a Mac Pro running MainStage. For those who don't know what that is, it's a host program that can talk to instruments and tell them to change their sound settings, or it has sounds of its own too, which I use a lot of. And so every keyboard, I have 4 keyboards on the live rig. I have an 88 key controller and a Hammond XK5 organ, which is connected to a Leslie speaker, which is backstage, or just right in the wing, really. Mm-hmm. And it's mic'd up for the audience to hear. And then
Leslie.
Yeah, I loved it, you know. And I have a Mini Moog Voyager, which is now a vintage synthesizer. Can you believe that? It's weird. It's from 2003 or 4, to, you know, whenever this particular one came out. And I also have a sequential Prophet Rev 2 under that. And any of those keyboards can control the other, or control the sounds in the computer, which I then have hooked up to an interface to get the audio out into the audience. Within that MainStage system, I can assign a foot pedal to send the change messages.
Cool.
So I'm hitting that pedal probably around 50 times in the show, because it happens several times within one song. If I'm on one keyboard, I can hit that pedal and the other ones are changing. That's what I used to do with Yes and Meatloaf, but not with a computer, but with this old archaic Digital Music Corp.
MX8.
Oh, yeah, that thing, we had to know hexadecimal code to thing. And I was so fortunate I had a tech back then. But with Yes, I would be playing. The organ was an island unto itself. It wasn't connected to the system.
Right.
So I always made my changes when I was playing organ, because there wouldn't be any interruption. Now that's not a concern anymore. Everything goes smoothly from one sound to the other. And so that's how I'm doing it.
That's awesome. So a fun question from Crowdcast. The Chihuahua that's in your video about sanitizing your phone, will it be joining you on tour?
I wish. That would be the most baller thing ever. That's Tom. He doesn't ask for much, but he has to have his Chihuahua on the road. Not my Chihuahua. We're just bros. So I get to visit whenever I come here.
Nice.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Here's a question. Did you transcribe the spider?
Every note.
Wow.
There you go. There's your answer.
Wow.
That was actually the first thing that they wanted to hear me play. So I had the job, but they just wanted to make sure I was doing my homework. So they sent Zach down. I was still in New Jersey at the time, and he's also a New Jerseyite. And he came down, and I just played it on a grand piano, and I was still reading it though. But so I wanted to make sure I had that locked down.
Awesome. Amazing. All right, I'm going to take one more quick scan of the chat windows. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today, Tom. And I do have your website there on the screen underneath your name. So everybody visit tombreslin.com. Follow him on all the socials. Get on his YouTube channel in particular and subscribe and like, because we're going to see a lot more content coming from there. And having said that... Oh, yeah, his Bandcamp page, of course. And go download, listen to Hurry Up and Smell the Roses. I absolutely love that album.
Thank you.
I actually keep the CD in my car, believe it or not. A CD.
No, there's still people out there. I'm one of them. We like CDs. Even now, last Friday when Bandcamp did their promotion to help musicians like myself who have just found ourselves off the road, they waived their share of the sales, and it was like a Bandcamp. I think their site saw more traffic than ever, and a lot of people picked up my CDs, which is pretty cool. Even I think I know a few people who don't even have CD players anymore, but they like that souvenir. They like to see the lyrics and all that stuff too. So.
Yeah, read the books, read all the notes inside. That's a very cool reason.
It's become almost the equivalent of owning one of those platinum sales awards that are framed on the wall.
Oh yeah, I saw one of the first live streams that I'd seen. One of those instant musician live streams was Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service, and he had some platinum and gold flexing on the wall behind him. So I said, "You go, all right, I see you. I see you. I see you." He put on a great show too.
Very cool. Well, I hope you get inspired to do something similar. We'd love to hear you playing and doing some live streams and exercising your creativity for all of us to see and hear.
I'm working on it. Like I mentioned before, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I don't have all of my gear, but this looks pretty good. If I can get it to sound right, I'm probably going to be doing some live stream performances. Because I remember doing those back in the Ustream days. So it's been a long time, but I have a lot of fun doing that. So yeah, look for that.
Excellent.
Cool.
Yeah, take advantage of the time, practice. I'm sure people will be hitting you up for lessons and anything that you can give electronically, be it through Skype and on the web. People are hungry for content right now.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking to share and connect with everybody.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, in fact, Ray Whitlock says, Tom did a series of videos on Facebook about how to learn songs quickly. I remember that.
That was my old studio, and some of them got pulled because I was actually playing the recordings, and I think Facebook ID'd them as copyrighted material. But I was actually doing a few shows playing keys for Dennis DeYoung of Styx, and people were saying, well, he was the keyboard player. What are you doing? But sometimes he liked to just go out and sing. And John Blasucci has been his longtime keyboardist, a great player, and needed to take some time off. So I jumped in there for a handful of shows, and it was coming by quickly. And I knew one way of definitely making sure I did my homework was if I turned the red recording light on and got in front of everybody and said, I'm going to learn these songs right now. So I had to follow through and deliver. I just couldn't get distracted by something else. So that was an interesting experience because I didn't go the transcription route on that. I had to go direct to memory and with a couple little cheat cards sort of thing. But I was showing ways where I would sort of digest a song and how I do it and how I get it up and running. So I may do something like that too during this time.
When you're touring with Kansas, how many songs are you playing on a given night?
Oh boy, I'll run through our set list. So we have about 4 or 5 in the acoustic set, and we have about 13 to 15, and some of those are pretty epic. I could be way off. It's funny. I never counted. I just counted. When we first did the show, it was about 2.5 hours. Now it's about 2:10. And like I said, the summer shows are about 90 minutes worth, jam packed. Like we just go for it.
Wow. And is the set list pretty consistent from night to night, or are they switching things up?
It's been mostly consistent for each show. So the Point No Return show has been mostly consistent. We made a couple changes. Like for instance, we had played some stuff from the 80s early on, and we swapped that with Icarus Born on Wings of Steel from the Mask album, which is really awesome. So we've made some adjustments here and there. So not every show has been the same. And hopefully this summer, hopefully we can get back on the road as soon as it's safe to do so. And, we can only hope. And so we might even sneak a new thing in there, something off the new record on our next tour. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well, and we will watch all your social channels to keep an eye on what you're up to. So thanks for spending this time with us. I know there's still actually people coming into the live stream now, but once it's wrapped up, you'll be able to rewind and listen to the whole thing. And again, Tom, we greatly appreciate you spending this time with us here today.
Definitely.
And for everybody watching on the Casio streams, you can also subscribe to hear more artist spotlights that we have coming up in the next few days. The next one coming up is Thursday with Julia Gartha. And next week, I think we're going to have Daryl Levine, Aaron Todd, and some others. So lots of Casio artists were joining us here on our live streams. But thanks to Tom, Rich Formardoni, thanks for joining us. Everybody be safe. And I'm going to play, just in closing, your video one more time as a reminder for everybody to go wash up. Thanks, Tom. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right. You're washing your hands. You're not touching your face. You're coughing into your sleeve. But there's one more thing. Sanitize your phone and remote control. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because they're gross. Take rubbing alcohol and a cotton ball and you sanitize your phone and you clean it all. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because they're gross. Sanitize your phone and clean its case. Don't you know how many times you hold it up to your face? You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. When you're stuck at home and you're all alone, you take a rubbing alcohol and you clean your phone. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. Your computer keys, tablet screen, and then the other place where your hands have been. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control. Go do it now. Sanitize your phone and remote control. Sanitize your phone and remote control. You got to sanitize your phone and remote control because they're